Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to EUW ChallengerSeries number 17, the second best of 3 between MeetYourMakers and Pulse eSports.
Here we are into Champion Select. Once again, I'm going to be a little bit behind on the Champion Select picks and bans because I have to watch off the stream. Unfortunately, on the live client, there are only 2 spectator slots, so our lovely producer, Rauben, has to be in there to make sure we can bring all of the action to you.
Ruben Beaker Rauben, as we call him, but either way, Shyvana, Rex and Annie will be first couple of bans, followed by Leona, which is something we don't see too often, Stress.
No, that isn't something we see too often. It was seen in the first game, though, so, I mean, these guys are going to keep their bans the same. I wonder whether we'll see... I was going through the champion list to kind of go Kassadin, Jax. Oh wait, that's like when you add all of them up, they can't ban everything from the last game and their bans from the last game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do choose to ban out here, whether we'll see anything from game number 1 here in the bans for game number 2.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that caused Pulse eSports problems from MYM. Jax was one of those things which were kind of like a byproduct of the state of the game, because Jax just gradually did better and better because there was no influence on his lane other than him, so he just got stronger and stronger. So I'm not necessarily sure that Jax is worth the ban. Caston was definitely an issue, but that may have just been because of the first blood and the snowball. A lot of the game rippled off of that level 1, so I'm not even sure if they can directly say, this pick did not work, or this pick causes huge problems.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, I think, is they need to change how they open the game and not give away a kill. That's a pretty important factor when opening a competitive game, but they do ban out that Kassadin, so that is... Obviously, they thought Chuyu did a pretty good job there on Kassadin, which of course he did. One difference to last game was Annie has been banned out. Clearly, Pulse don't want MYM to pick Annie up in their first rotation, so it means they're going for something else. Mundo might be available. You've probably already had the bans come up.
Yes, so Elise has been picked up, Mundo and Gragas in return, so... already with some pretty strong picks in this meta, and Elise, I believe, was first picked last time, and it's very safe as a first pick.
Yeah, so you can see that delay on the stream does kind of make me the opposite of a fortune teller. Makes it look like I'm just a little bit dumb and a little bit slow.
Yeah, you just kind of like, I predict we'll pick this, and it's been picked like 10 seconds ago.
Yeah.
And you look not very smart. But the next couple of picks will be Waliter picking up the Lucian. In fact, he's hovering over it, and they're also hovering over the Olaf, which can be in the jungle or indeed the top lane.
If they were to lock that in, I would be a little bit surprised because it would mean it was running top lane, Zelis more commonly in the jungle. So we'll see what indeed they lock in. But we saw Gragas to great effect all weekend in the Scan Invitational. Even that moment where Ocelot on Gragas would absolutely delete Kayle in the grand finals, that made its way onto Reddit as well. So just big plays from Gragas all weekend long. Not surprised to see him picked here after being banned in game number 1.
Yeah, there's a video on that somewhere on YouTube, so I would highly recommend checking that one out. It's only like 6 seconds, it won't take too much of your time. So, yep, Olaf and Lucian have been locked in, and Olaf is something we do see, but not often as, say, like the classic top laners such as Mundo, such as Shyvana, but definitely could be a jungle picker.
Okay, so to talk a little bit about that, since you say it has been locked in, that means we're either getting Olaf in the top lane or Elise in the top lane, and neither one of them really have their biggest strengths up in the top lane. Recently, Olaf was picked up as a jungler a lot in Korea to make sure that you got to the back line of a team in the team fights with those high mobility compositions. You look at the Civic Armor styles, and made sure that Olaf could get there because, of course, when Ragnarok has been popped, there's no stopping him. So it's a little bit surprising to see one of these two be picked out of where you'd more commonly seen them, but they are able to fulfill that top lane role as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how either of these guys face up against Mundo in that top lane, but the following 2 picks will be Nidalee, and they are hovering over Heimerdinger, which will most likely be a placeholder pick unless they just go all in and go ham, but unlikely that they'll decide to do that. They still have their support to be picked up. Nidalee is most likely going to be in the middle lane, which is another pick stress that we saw a lot a couple weeks ago and kind of died off as we had the more consistent mid laners, Gragas, Orianna, those type of pickups. But Nidalee and Ziggs do very similar things. They're very good on the offensive in terms of pushing and very good on the defensive, so that you can just like counter push very effectively.
And speaking of consistency, I'm a little bit surprised on the Vayne lock-in, actually, to go back just a bit to touch on that. Vayne really has not seen a lot of play at all, even by players that are well known for their Vayne, such as Doublelift. Gave out a list where he basically ranked Vayne almost at the bottom. I think he actually had forgotten about Quinn on that list, but Vayne played around that level, and it's to do with the way that Vayne deals with champions in lane like Lucian. Vayne is not that good at trading early on into the game, relies on getting later and later. A lot of the champions that MIM have picked in this series have been to do with getting later into the game. So a little bit surprised to see some support and AD carry pairings here that just aren't as common recently as you have seen them before.
Yeah, I mean, Vayne Sona has very good all-in at level 6, but it's trying to get there against Lucian and against Lulu. One of the common attempts to try and make the Vayne pick work is to swap it into a 1 versus 2, which you can do with Gragas, but also that's the Katarina picked up, so we're probably going to have... well, that's interesting. It's probably going to be Gragas jungle, and Makata will be sporting that.
That'll be interesting to see, because a lot of people have highly rated Gragas jungle as well. There's a lot in his kit that actually goes a long way, and I believe we saw it in a couple of competitive games over in the Asian servers. I know European players have been playing it for a little while as well. If I'm not mistaken, we saw Katarina played, I want to say it was in the Cloud9 versus MIM games, but it may very well have been MIM's best round of 8 games where we saw Katarina actually went up against a Kazakh's lane. So you had that really weird double assassin with the resets, that it was which one got the reset first actually ended up in pretty much cleaning up the team fight. So not too surprising that it's picked, but it is a little bit surprising.
It is. Either way, guys, we're going to jump to a quick commercial break, and when we get back, it'll be in the second and potentially last game for today between MeetYourMakers and Pulse eSports. We'll see you soon.
light begins to fade now, and I feel like I'm losing time, but I don't know how I'm here. The sunlight has turned to gray, and I feel like I'm losing love again. I don't know how I'm here. I could feel your heartbeat. I could feel somewhere you're looking down. I could feel your heartbeat. I could feel somewhere you're looking down. 'Cause it's you I'm loving, and it's you that I wanna breathe, and it's you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to EUW Challenge Series number 17. That's 3 Challenger Series ago right now, but this is going to be MeetYourMakers and Pulse eSports. MeetYourMakers are currently 1-0. I am Pulse, and I am joined by Stress.
Yeah, we are in game here for Pulse against MYM, and MYM have themselves a 1-0 lead after an invade went well in their favor, picking up a kill onto the jungler from Pulse in the very early goings of the game. We're able to snowball off that as well with the amount of pressure that they put down on to that bottom lane. So we'll not see either of the teams go for that aggressive start this time, but we will have to watch as these teams go through the early game.
Yeah, these guys are just going to go ahead and fan out and just try and stop invades from happening, because that level 1 was disastrous, and it actually did, the rest of the game did snowball off of that. So Pulse going to take it a little more conservatively and see what they can do. So there's a couple interesting picks this lane, specifically from MeetYourMakers, maybe feeling a little more comfortable just so they can get rolling, and Chuyu's going to be picking up the Katarina, and Makler taking the Vayne.
Yeah, it's surprising there, but they're not even some of the more obscure picks. Is MYM going for that Gragas jungle, which has worked for teams. It's by no means a new addition, because Gragas is able to sustain his way around the jungle, but there's already a skirmish in bottom.
Yeah, Makler and Woolite going toe-to-toe. Elendix is going to be standing there wailing against Makler, and the minions will not be blocking the pick's passive. Elendix is kind of caught in no man's land, but both these AD carries are very, very low, taking another Glitter Lance to the face.
You have to wonder, if Makler hadn't taken that Glitter Lance, they may have re-engaged this, but now Libic has to run away as Makler still pretty low.
Yeah, Sona is very squishy in these early trades. Woolite are barely coming out ahead in that trade, and it's coming down to the wire to the point it doesn't really matter if you do get a couple more HP. Elendix and Libic are still going at it. This is so incredibly close, and Piercing Light does actually tag Makler.
Yeah, Makler a little bit behind the animation there on the flash. You can flash out of the Piercing Light by moving away, even if it is set to target you, but not able to get away from it that time, and Burns' flash will be forced to recall.
Yeah, so Libic is just being pushed around while his AD carry is not in lane, and at any point in time, this is a very aggressive lane, and rightfully so, because Lucian does trade off very well against Vayne, but the first couple of levels, the extra damage from Tumble means you can actually trade.
I'm a little bit surprised they're actually having Barrier, that Flash was the summoner of choice that was burned. I mean, yes, it got him to safety, but it's a much longer cooldown, so not sure about that one.
Indeed, I guess it's kind of like the split-second reaction thing that happens with a lot of AD carries. So I can kind of see the Vayne pick against Lucian, because you can tumble out of Piercing Light. So maybe that's what they're looking for, specifically when, if you are going to go toe-to-toe with Lucian, it's going to be like a straight-on trade.
The problem here is Makler is still level 1 and Woolite has just hit level 3, so the whole arsenal of skills will be available for Lucian slightly early. And one of the things that Vayne will struggle with is the amount of harass that can be put down. Yes, they've got Sona to sustain back up with the heals, but it's going to be a little bit difficult in the early game here for Vayne, but they do have Makata heading around the backside.
Yeah, both of these junglers are going to find themselves in the bottom lane. Makata and indeed Kickers both rocking out the dual buffs, and Libic's just going to poke away at Elendix. Kickers comes round from the side, Piercing Light will land. Cocoon does not quite connect, but he might go even deeper. This time the barrier comes in. Makata has finally arrived, and Kubon actually burns the teleport. Not sure if they're going to catch up the flash into Cleaver. Another flash from Elendix in response. Kickers this time landing Cocoon, jumps onto Kubon. Piercing Light comboed with the Venomous Bite, takes a barrel, and it doesn't look like any kills are going to quite come down, but 4 members and a 4-member stack from MYM.
That was a lot used out of MYM, including that teleport, and it all stemmed for the fact that Makler moved forward and really thought they had the drop there on the Pulse bottom lane, but they hadn't seen Kikis in the bush waiting for them, so instantly put himself right between Elise and Lucian, and that's not where you want to be as a Vayne in the early goings, because you're going to take a lot of damage.
And already burning that early teleport means that Mundo can't use it to get back to lane. Oh, excuse me, it's going to be down for the next couple of minutes, meaning that if they do go for that early dragon, which is very likely considering they're running the Elise, he's not going to be able to teleport down to try and contest that, and he also lost some farm in the top lane to Olaf.
Yeah, it allows Olaf to get a good advantage here, and Mundo is one of the most difficult top laners to deal with just because of the amount that he really doesn't care as he gets later and later into the laning phase, especially. Once he's hit level 6, it's pretty difficult to get rid of a Mundo without jungler assistance, so we'll have to see how that top lane works out. Shunpo forced out in mid from Chuyu, and that's the mobility there from Katarina.
Yeah, and the ward's also used, so she's not going to be able to use that off to the side, but it's also a post that she can continue to use defensively. But Nick has not been able to do too much on Chuyu to shut him down, despite being melee range. Kuban will be taken down for first blood against Jokis, and Reckless Wing will secure that kill.
Difficult to shove Mundo out after 6. Fairly easy to do it before 6, as you can see Olaf does have that damage. But Williter gets condemned, didn't hit the wall, and that is not good for Makler.
Indeed, he did manage to duke the piercing light, but now that Lulu is here, Woolite following after with the damage. Libica's returned into the lane, but he might well go all in. Barrier has been used, both of the AD carries drop, and both of the supports pick up the kills.
Yeah, both supports picking up the kill at exactly the same time. They're a little bit confused at what exactly happened with that. They both seem to pretty much disintegrate the AD carries right at the final stand, but Kuban has headed back to that top lane, but is at somewhat of a disadvantage. Jokis has hit level 6, so does have his ultimate available, but Kuban's got to be careful he doesn't get shoved out before Sadism becomes available once again.
Yeah, he's always 20 farm behind and will be farming out that wave, but with Ragnarok available, then Sadism will not get him out of dodge immediately because he does bring a lot of burst damage to the top lane using Reckless Swing. So in the bottom lane, again, these guys have been very aggressive, and that's kind of what you need to do when you're against the Vayne pick, and also when Makler has specifically picked the Vayne against Lucian, and curiously enough, has been maxing the Silver Bolts. Chuyu forced to use the flash, and the spear will land in the middle lane. Nick follows up, the execute combo is not quite enough, but Kickers will secure that kill.
And Chuyu went aggressive onto Nick 760 with the Death Lotus. Wasn't in turret range, so didn't take too much damage, but a great time gank there from Kikis. Forced the flash out from Chuyu and then managed to reposition around for the cocoon. Chuyu actually walking into it and pretty much sealing his own fate there as Shunpo or flash weren't available.
So, it's interesting that Max was deciding to max the Silver Bolts first, but I guess it matches the cooldown on Lucian's Piercing Light to his Tumble, so it doesn't matter all that much. But usually you will max like the Silver Bolts in the lane, maybe a top lane where you're just kiting them around, or you're in a very easy lane. So, I'm not too sure what he's looking for.
Kuban just spent a little more time out of lane, and it means that he's got over a level behind Jokis, and you can see Jokis not quite level 8, but will be there fairly soon, and they've got to be careful that Kuban doesn't spend too much time out of lane. His teleport will be up again soon, and you can expect to start seeing the dragon control come out from Pulse, but if he continues to spend time out, it's not very good for him leveling, but Makler is going aggressive.
Yeah, and Mokata will follow up. The explosive cast used to knock Woolite towards him, knocked against the wall, Condemned secures the kill. Alendix is the only surviving member of that bottom lane skirmish.
And that's actually, coincidentally, going to help out the top lane somewhat, because it means they won't require the teleport. They now have the numbers advantage. Libic does take a spear, though, but they have number advantage here at Dragon, so in theory, they should be pretty confident that they can take this.
Yeah, Nick has just dragged it out for MYM because he is a good guy. Makata takes another Javelin, so Dragon is very low. Kickers may well try and steal this away, and Gragas will take another Javelin just to allow them to take that Dragon successfully. Lendix is being followed after by Makler. The kill goes down. Chuyu wants to go in on this, but his team is not quite there.
That was pretty much hitting the corner there from that Condemned to ensure that they picked up that kill. Looks like Kikis wants to continue to be aggressive, but there's nothing really around for him right now. As the jungle in Makata is quite low, but I think with Chuyu there, they should be okay.
Not going to be too much of an issue. Chuyu has been caught out. Makata really can't afford to go all in. And Nick will just be continuously sieging the turret, but not going to take it on this wave.
You could see good positioning out from Kikis to repel as soon as he realized that he was in a little over his head to manage to get to the minions that were just pushing in the tower in mid. Chuyu has got to be careful that he doesn't take too much damage from Nidalee, because otherwise he won't be able to be aggressive when he chooses to, and you can see pushed already behind the turret.
Already, indeed, and almost getting picked up by the execute combo from Nick 760. So Libic has arrived in the middle lane, but actually just allowing them to take the bottom lane. Makla's just being completely punted around. Culling used to just clear out that wave, and Solar is not able to assist in this. They probably will pick up the kill onto Makla, but the tower is being sieged in, and they are losing a lot of farm in CS.
They've got to be careful they don't get too far behind on that. It is still fairly even between the teams now, as it is only 200 gold. Still in favor of MYM after taking game number 1, but Pulse is certainly in better standing than they were at this point in game number 1. It was already quite a significant lead in favor of MYM, so this time we're seeing what Pulse can do, as they will push on towards this bottom tower.
Yeah, those two small hiccups last time really were to their detriment, but were kind of like more competent lanes by themselves. They're not going to fall behind, and Kubon is slowly losing to that Olaf, which is something that MYM will have to deal with. Last time it was a role reversal because they had the Jax, and it was something that Pulse had to deal with despite being behind in all the other lanes. So Kubon is still surviving, and as long as he can get a kill here and there, he's probably good to go.
Part of me feels that MYM have really picked weaker lane choices than we're expecting to see, but they did the same in game number 1 with the Kassadin and Jax that really through the laning phase aren't as strong as you'd expect. Chuyu actually, I believe, didn't use the Death Lotus, but might be in trouble.
Indeed, 2 versus 2 as Makata has arrived, knocks them away from Death Lotus. Maybe not the right communication and combination of skills.
I think that Makata wanted to save Chuyu's life, and Chuyu wanted to take some lives from his opponents. So a little bit of miscommunication there from MYM.
Indeed, but they might go for round 2. Both the junglers going to find themselves in the jungle. Makata dropped very low, and Kixers will probably be quite content with trying to take this away, this Wraith away from him. Chuyu still hanging around, and again, the tension is up as they are trying to move on to Chuyu, but Shumpo will get him out of dodge. Bottom lane, however, they've gone for the engagement. Makla dropped low. Libic is going to be on the receiving end of Warlighter's auto attacks, but again, everything is so tense.
Very tense indeed, and you can see the Haunting Guys has been picked onto Katarina as Makata gets dropped very low in the middle lane. Haunting Guys, fairly standard item here on Katarina. You don't need to build all that much in the way of anything other than magic penetration.
Yeah, Crescendo was used to initiate that fight. Chuyu will kill Kikis in the middle lane. Nick trying to escape because his ally did become a reset for Katarina's skills.
And of course those resets do make Katarina the champion that she is. So good, Flash comes forward, Shunpo comes through, picks up another kill.
Very smooth with Sinister Steel, and that's one of the things you can do with Katarina. You can maybe only take one tower shot and just combo your abilities very nicely using resets.
Really nice way to get back out, of course, because that reset allows it to become available. Top lane has been a little bit quiet recently, but you can see Jokis has been able to keep the lead he's had over Kubon, but the more and more Kubon gets in the way of items. In fact, he hasn't bought recently at all. He's 2,100 gold on his person, so as soon as he goes back to buy, he should have a little bit easier of a time against Olaf, but of course Olaf will start doing true damage to go through any of those resistances.
Yeah, Olaf is not quite pushing Kubon now. He's got a small CS advantage, and Kubon is basically just farming with cleavers, and because it's on such a short cooldown, it's not bringing his farm too far behind Jokis, and as a result, neither of these players have felt the need to go back. So top lane is this usual kind of island state where no one touches it for a long time. Nick has picked up the blue buff, and Dragon is spawning in a minute, which will probably be the main contention point, and as a result, we do see MeetYourMakers already converging on the bottom lane, trying to get themselves a pick, setting themselves up for Dragon.
Yeah, they're looking to angle around, but there is a ward, and blue buff's actually an interesting point in the difference between these two teams. Katarina does not require blue buff, so Gragas is able to pick it up for himself, and it means that his ult is off cooldown.
Yeah, brings Elendix towards the wall. Chuyu, Death Lotus comes in, gets the reset, gets the second jump sound with Jumpo. Double kill comes in, 30 seconds left on Dragon, and that should be a much easier pickup.
Much easier for them, and they will shove a wave into this bottom tower to make sure that they have the presence to get that dragon. They have lost a tower of their own in mid, and Makler and Libic don't look like they want to duel Kikis here, but Makata has come back around.
Nick did make the right decision in pushing the middle turret while his opponent was elsewhere, but losing those two members in the bottom lane, and more importantly having them on Katarina, means that she will be an even bigger threat in the mid game, and they don't have all that much CC to deal with her apart from Cocoon and maybe Elendix's knockup. There's not too much to disrupt the Katarina.
There was the Cocoon onto Libic. The Spiderlings were chasing but got out of the radius that they can be from Elise, and now Kikis may have put himself in trouble. But it looks like the rest of Pulse are around here. Neither team has really secured the dragon control yet.
They haven't, but Libic being so low will make this a 3 versus 4 for the time being, unless we can have a huge power play from Pulse, which is not something they necessarily want to do. A confined environment and Katarina is a recipe for resets.
Now, neither top lane has bought recently at all. It was only when Mundo was killed that they went back and picked up items, so it means that they're both carrying around about 3,000 gold, and with Olaf pushing up to the turret, he will pick that up for his team, so they get an objective on the top side of the map, and look like they've pushed MYM away from the dragon for now.
Yeah, Mundo offers a lot to a team fight, plus he has the teleport, and Olaf is just going to carry on pushing the top lane until he gets more items, then he'll start being scary to those carries. And again, just a small skirmish between the bottom lane 2 versus 2. Mundo itemizing the Warmogs, knowing that his life is going to be spent on top lane. That's the perfect item against Olaf's true damage.
Yeah, of course, his true damage will go through the resistances, so the only way of really mitigating it is to get extra health, so plus 1,000 health from that Warmog's armor really gives Mundo the ability to stay in that lane a little bit longer. You can see that Spirit Visage was picked up on to Olaf alongside a Bilgewater Cutlass, so wanting to go with an aggressive choice here rather than anything further defensive after that initial Spirit Visage.
It is kind of the trifecta of top lane. You've got the Spirit Visage, the Blades of the Ruin King, and some Fire Cape, and maybe another armor item thrown in for good measure, but those are the 3 most common items up there, no matter who you were playing. So, Okata, just hanging around the dragon, and right now got the teleport coming in from Kuban. Makler will follow up underneath this turret. Kuban wants to be the one tanking, but Libic is going to take it. Warlight has been caught by the crescendo knock against the wall using the condemn knockback from Makata on the top side will mean that they can't even contest. 5-man stack in the bottom lane will secure that dragon.
Yeah, MYM now going to rotate around to it. They've got to be careful they don't take too many spears here from 760 as they look to secure another global objective, although they haven't taken a tower yet for themselves, so they maybe need to start playing the towers game a little bit more now that Dragon isn't there as an objective, so wouldn't be too surprised to see MYM starting to group a little bit better.
Yeah, MYN don't have the most fantastic of tower-taking teams. They can't siege very well, especially against the Nidalee who will whistle them down. But what they do well is small skirmishes, a lot like Cloud9 when we saw yesterday's stress, and also just at team fighting in general, because Katarina's doing exceptionally well, Vayne is only ever going to become stronger, so they're not in a hurry to close this game out.
Yeah, the best case scenario is, in fact, the one that... Well, not best. They could have been further ahead, but that would always be the best would have been to be out and done by now. But
yeah.
A good situation for MYM is that all of their kills pretty much are on Katarina and Vayne. Only the one has gone elsewhere. So the 2 champions that are going to deal high amounts of damage during these team fights are the ones that have the kills, so that is a good position to be in. Blade of the Ruin King, a common item as that first pick on Vayne, is one of the only champions in that AD carry position that you really see build Blade of the Ruin King first, but it just lends itself so well to being able to be mobile in fights and deal a lot of damage.
Yeah, if the item has attack speed, Vayne will like it. She'll also like a kill onto Elendix. No way he's going to get out of this. He will sacrifice himself for Lucian. So again, playing the kills game will be MeetYourMakers.
Yeah, of course, as you mentioned, that attack speed allows her to stack those silver bolts even faster as well. So Looks like we're into a bit of a lull period here as MeetYourMakers are trying to deal with some of the minion waves that have been pushed in. It is in fact 3 towers to 0 here in favor of Pulse. We talked about the a little bit worse tower pushing that MYM have here. They have themselves a 2,000 gold lead, but without any objectives, they have to start doing something with these kills that they pick up.
Yeah, indeed, but team fights will definitely help them. Pulse do have some pretty decent wave clear at sieging and anti-sieging potential, mainly from the Nidalee, so chasing them down will be a little difficult, but if you can instantly sweep them up, which Katarina can certainly do, that's the type of fight that they want. Dragon has been taken off the board, so they can't lure them out into open grounds, and these outer turrets later on into the game that you get are easier to take down and less of a threat they'll become, so Kuban might be the guy who's going to sit underneath that and allow them to open up a team fight. There's Makler will jump out the cocoon.
Ooh, just getting out of the way of the cocoon from that flash there. So managed to stay alive, and really that's just something they have to keep on top of, is keeping Vayne alive for as long as possible. They don't have the biggest amount of peels once the initial crowd control is gone, and Kuban is getting dangerously low, but he is Mundo, so not as low as you need for a Mundo to die.
And Yu, one combo brings Nick below 25%. Spear will take down that minion, but Yu is looking very strong even in duelist scenarios. So when he picks up more items, he will be a threat to contend with. Mokata comes in from the top side once again, using that angle. And Yu will be close behind, but again, superb warding from Elendix will keep them safe.
Yeah, Mokata will walk through the ward, body slam over the wall, and here comes the fight.
Well, relatively safe, and mostly safe because both the ultimate from Mokata didn't quite go the right way, and Livic's crescendo completely whiffed.
Oh, Chuyu's in trouble, though.
He is indeed. He's backing off to his team, looking for that opportunity to use Shumpo. Javelin doesn't quite connect. Warlighter is still there, takes a barrel roll. Yu still backing on off. Volatile Spiraling connects to Mokata. So does the Cocoon Javelin and the rest of the combo. Nick picks up 1 kill. There's the Death Lotus wallbang to the side using Condemn. Livic very nearly taking another Javelin, but 2-0 will be that trade for Pulse eSports.
And Chuyu was very aggressive there, ended up getting a lot of damage put on him, so when he did choose to engage with the Death Lotus at the end of the fight, he was far too low for even 1 kill, let alone getting the resets. Had he been able to pick it up, they would have probably got another 2 or 3 because of how low Pulse were and the way that Katarina works, but Chuyu has to not be so aggressive during the openings of these fights when the rest of his team just aren't there to protect him.
Indeed, he's always finding himself in compromising positions where he can really use that cleanup potential, and that's kind of the key word with a lot of these reset champions like Katarina and like Kha'Zix. They want to be jumping in at the right time where they're still relevant to the fight, but also when they can just like drop someone and get those resets. So it's finding that right balance, that right time to go in, and that comes a lot down to positioning, which Chidyu has not quite found in these fights.
And that's the problem with this lineup that MYM have, is once the Explosive Cask is gone and the Crescendo, they have very little in the way of peel or anything to stop the members of Pulse from getting to their backline. They're then relying on the Tumble and the Shunpo out of Katarina to get them out of danger rather than move around a team fight if they start to get under a lot of trouble.
Yeah, MeetYourMakers as a team composition actually are fairly mobile, especially with Gragas on the field, Makler, Libic with the general movement speed increase, and Dragon spawning in 40 seconds will probably be the catalyst for another team fight, or MeetYourMakers just taking that again, but Pulse are probably feeling happy enough to potentially go for a fight. They are only 1k behind.
But it is quite strange to see a Vayne here at 4-1 against a Lucian who coincidentally is 1-4. So the laning phase has gone very well for MYM. They've just been stalled as they've hit the mid game, which isn't too surprising. You already talked about their somewhat lack of tower pushing. You can see Kuban is even getting pushed down up in this top lane. It is forcing a rotation out of Chuyu, but Ping went down onto him. Here comes the engage in bottom.
Explosive cast from Mokata doesn't quite hit the mark. Kicker's coming down, lands the repel, and the speed up from Talismans of Ascension. Makler locks him against the wall. Crescendo comes through. Kuban has arrived into this fight using teleport. Nick from the backside has not yet contributed to this fight, and Kuban is gradually grinding down the Lendix. There's the kill. Javelin will connect with Mundo. He's gonna just shake that off. Makler with the rest of the team trying to collapse down upon Nick. Lands another Javelin onto Chuyu as he retreats, but Dragon seems secure for MeetYourMakers.
And it's the question now of how much can MYM get before Olaf takes a turret. He's starting to chunk through it quite a bit and will end up getting this as long as Kubon doesn't manage to get there in time. Kubon will get there, but Joki's Blade of the Ruined King will start his escape. So a good pickup there for Pulse, but MYM did secure that dragon. Can they get any more from it?
Yeah, MeetYourMakers playing the objective game. Warlight from the side, Nick as well. 2 versus 3. Death Lotus rips apart Warlight. Flash forwards and Mukata does not again land the body slam. Nick still following after along with kickers. Cocoon will land. They actually get the vision while he's in the brush. Shumpo over the wall, dodges all the skill shots, and the Ghost Ward does not quite find him.
It felt like Mokata misjudged his ultimate cooldown. Had he had it available, that was the kind of play you normally see out of a Gragas. That flash only really comes out from an escape, flashing forward at the end of the animation from Body Slam, which was already over, or if you're going to ult someone so they cannot expect it coming. And it wasn't available. It was still 5 to 10 seconds away, so it wasn't even close, and Mokata uses flash for nothing.
You may actually see some mechanical issues from the Gragas from Mokata because he's not a mid laner. He's a jungler. So
of course, yeah.
like you're expecting these amazing kind of mechanical plays, and he's attempting them. But he's like, I'm used to things like Aatrox where you click a button and then you engage.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. So, not normal that when you see Gragas making those plays, it is from the jungle either. So, not too surprised on that. I'll take some of the criticism back there.
Just pat Mokata on the head. He'll get it at some point. As long as Gragas remains viable, I'm sure he'll practice it. But either way, he's going to be hanging around in the spawn pad with the rest of his team. Kubon finding himself Jokies, but with that huge amount of health, he's not going to be pushed down too quickly, picking up both Spirit Vivers and Warmogs. An extra 1,400 HP turns out it's very difficult to chunk through, but Jokies is going to give it a good attempt.
He is going to give it a good attempt, and it's somewhat surprising to see a Mundo that hasn't built any armor at all. You mentioned it earlier that Randuin's and Sunfire Cape tends to be fairly consistent items up in that top lane as some of the first 3 or 4 that you pick up. So items 1 and 2 not having any armor on them at all, relying on the Ninja Tabby just to try and soak up some of that damage, means that he's not going to be able to take too much damage from the AD, but there is an engage here in the top.
Cocoon connects onto Libic and the Undertow from Jokies, but not an engagement they quite want just yet. Chuyu is flashing up red in the middle lane as Nick is in hot pursuit. As the jump comes out onto the ward, and, well, it looks like Pulse are just going to skedaddle away from top lane. Not going to be wanting to really fight this one out.
Although 760 is rotating around, manages to land a spear onto Libic, but Mokata's caught.
This has turned into a very scrappy 4 versus 4. Cristiano once again misses. That's 2 in a row. Makler is still alive. No one can quite connect with him. Jokies lands a perfect undertow. He might be able to reconnect onto him. Wildgrove knocks him back. Shut down onto that vein. Kubon is still alive and kicking. Makata is there. Barrel roll lands. Body slam will hit onto kickers. Nick is still hanging around the outskirts of the fight, mopping people up as they try to escape. Makata drops kickers in the meanwhile. 1 versus 2. Another javelin picks up another kill. 1 for 2. Colin will go completely to waste. Chuyu using that ward to secure his escape path, and he will carry on chasing Javelin again. Will be juked by Chuyu, and Lennox trying to get in range for that glitter launch, and that'll be the chance, using Mokata as another Shumpo post, and they back off.
Ooh, so many abilities grazing past Chuyu. The entire channel of the culling just not quite able to reach him, but that was a very prolonged team fight, and you saw there the effect that building this extra magic resist and extra health has gone onto Mundo here, because there's not a lot of AD on the side of Pulse Esports. They're mostly true damage and AP, so he was able to survive that fight because Lucian wasn't there, and really just meant that he could control a little bit around. And this is a much closer game than our first. It's only 1,000 gold is the difference here at 28 minutes into the game. We didn't even reach 28 minutes in game 1.
We didn't, and it's a very close game, as you've already pointed out. 1 minute 40 on the Dragon will probably be the next point of these guys fighting over the focal point of the next couple of minutes, and Vayne is just going to carry on farming, picking up 2 attack speed items. I wouldn't be surprised if we see even a static shiv on top of that, or maybe just a more conventional AD item. Has already picked up the longsword, so it looks like he might go for something a little different, but longsword could basically be anything, as we spoke about yesterday's stress when we were commentating on Q's game.
Yeah, one of the most ambiguous items in the game.
Yeah.
There's so much it builds towards. But the later this game goes on, you have to feel like it's going to favor MYM from that Vayne pick. It means that they can get as many people low as they can off Chuyu and take into account the resets there, and then Vayne will just become a cleanup machine, being able to chase people down. So if those team fights go as MYM will expect them to, they should be good the later this goes on. But Pulse maybe looking to trade in the jungle.
Yep, Mikasa does land the barrel roll onto a landing, doesn't quite pack the punch as a mid laner, but Limit and Makler will do that job. Chuyu over the wall, Javelin picks up the kill as he comes in, kickers from the side, and Wooliter will pick up a kill onto Makler, so already taken out of this fight. Chuyu has finally arrived, using Livik to shumpo in. The culling will graze the back of them, auto attack comes down, Ardent Blaze will connect, Wobble auto attack will sweep the rest of this fight. Wooliter will get it, double kill comes out, 4-for-1 trade.
And Makata trying to provide the Shunpo there for Chuyu to get over the wall actually cost him his life. The spear was very nicely placed out of 760, although it's not really that intentional. They didn't have vision of Chuyu trying to get over, so kind of good placement there out of 760 to pick up a somewhat blind kill on a Makata who was trying to assist his teammate, but Pulse will turn around and look towards the Baron here off a very well-played team fight.
Yeah, they're very tanky. Jokeys will probably tank the rest of this along with the Spiderlings. Kickers with a % damage will chunk it down. And Pulse, in just a couple seconds, take the Baron Nashor and will gain the gold lead for the first time in this game.
And the first time in this series, because this is the first time they've been ahead, and we'll see how MYM can deal with being behind. Dragon has just respawned, so they will look to take that as their objective. The recalls from Pulse means that nobody is going to be available to stop this Dragon attempt, but they've got to get Vayne moving a little bit more. She got to 4-1 and is now at 4-3, so Last Whisper will give the extra penetration there to make sure that the damage being done is significant out of Vayne, but they need to get the positioning right. Makler is going very aggressive into team fights and getting surrounded.
A little interesting that Makler has opted for the Last Whisper, because it was an interesting graph in like Season 2, which showed how much armor the opponent needs for that to be an efficient item on Vayne, and because you have percent true damage, which literally nothing stops, then you don't pick up Last Whisper until they have like 200 armor or something absurd. It's the same sort of thing with Kog'Maw, but Kublon's just going to casually walk into middle lane, instantly turned into a squirrel and instantly dropped. He was running away from an angry Olaf, but maybe not quite the route he wanted to take. Javelin destroys Livik.
And MYM's itemization works against them there, because without any armor other than those Ninja Tabi, it meant that Mundo just got blasted down by Wooliter, and that's an inhibitor onto a Baroned up Pulse, and this is complete turnaround here from game number 1. With 20 seconds plus on 2 death timers, Pulse will just end the game.
That was entirely unexpected. Makata has finally turned up, but the Death Lotus doesn't even pick up 1 kill. Makata's so close to the Javelin. Pulse are probably going to just carry on pushing. I was going to say they might just cut their winnings and run, but Makler taking another volatile spiraling. Second Nexus turret will fall. Good luck getting Jokeys off your spawn pad. He will also just go onto Chuyu, picking up another kill. Makler drops in quick succession. GG has been called. Makler and Makata die. Kubon has arrived just to be thrown back in the death chamber, and the end of the game.
That's a very different result to game number 1. I mean, we discussed it between the games and maybe weren't giving Pulse enough credit here in this series. It looks like with a much better start, they can provide a more consistent performance and actually come from being behind to end up pulling out a win here. So all tied up is the series 1-1.
Yeah, 1